So I'm here with Paige and Renee, and we actually just summited Lone Pine Peak, which is right up here behind us. Yep. And we ended up having to go up a pretty sketchy, was that sketchy? Ski slope?
Yeah, it was very sketchy.
Want to see it?
Very scary.
It's right there. You probably can't see it, but we'll get a lot of footage of it in here. But I guess I wanted to kind of try to capture this while we're out here, because we spend so much time in the business talking about this is like backpacking or this is like climbing a mountain, and kind of using this analogy that I always like to grab the opportunity of when we're actually in the analogy to try and say, what are we learning or observing or, you know, sort of experiencing about living life, pursuing the challenges in your health, your business, your relationships, whatever it is that you're after. So the main thing I wanted to talk about is why do this? And I think that if I were to kind of, as I'm learning these two's experience, I think that for Renee, I think this was really scary.
Yeah.
And I think that for Paige, this was a ton of discomfort and just coming over really not wanting to do it. And yet,
ta-da!
Here we are.
We're done.
So Renee, why do it? Why do stuff that's scary?
I know that I'm going to come out stronger when I'm done. So I feel like it's worth it in the moment when I'm doing it and I am not loving it at all. I feel like the reason why I'm doing it is because I know that I'm going to be a stronger version of myself when I'm done.
And what does it sound like? What does it sound like in your head when you are scared? Like, were you scared at all on this trip?
100%. All the way up to the top, all the way up to the ridge. I was not happy, very uncomfortable, thinking about just holding on to a rock and not moving and just letting them make it to the summit and just calling it a day.
Oh, you considering just letting us go and just bailing altogether?
I did a little bit.
And how come you didn't bail?
Well, I didn't think too much of it because I knew if I sat and really thought about reasons why I should stay, then it would be harder for me to get going and get the momentum going again.
Oh, nice. Directed your focus.
Yeah. So I just kind of with climbing, when they say you don't have to take a really big step to get a good handhold, sometimes the smallest steps give you the biggest opportunity for movement. And I feel like I was just kind of going with that, where I'm like, okay, I'd love to quit and just stay here, but let me just make it around to this next rock, and then I'll reevaluate. And so I think that's kind of like how I got out of thinking about let's quit, and I just kind of kept going.
Did you make the fear go away?
No, it was always there.
Yeah,
the fear was, it didn't go away. It was always there.
Well, the reason I ask, I think that's super important.
As
I can't tell you how many times someone's had some ambitious goal or some dream they want to pursue, and they're like, but I'm scared.
Right.
And so then they don't.
Right.
And I saw you do it scared.
Yeah.
Rather than try to figure out, okay, how do I get rid of fear? How do I get rid of fear? How do I get rid of fear so that I can execute? You're like, no. Execute scared.
No, it was fear the whole way. Just take a couple breaths and just do it again.
What about you? How come you do this?
Well, I say a lot to embrace discomfort, and it's important to me that I'm doing cool things. And I think that if I stuck to only doing things that were comfortable and I stuck to only doing things that were easy, I would never be able to step outside of that comfort zone and do hard things or do uncomfortable things or do things that I felt pushed myself. I think that my mindset right now is like 10 times better than when I started, because it was challenged so much from 5 a.m. this morning to right now. So.
Were there any times that you were looking up at what you had to do today and you're like, it's just too much?
Yeah, I think for a lot of things, not wanting to. Like I felt confident that I could, but I never really wanted to, like ever today. But stopping doesn't really register as an option to me. I'm like, I'm not gonna do it. Like I'm here, I'm halfway up this slope, like what am I gonna do, turn around? No. And so I would look up and I would be super bummed out that I wasn't really close at all. And then once we did get through the slope and now we're on the ridge and we just have to walk to the summit, we didn't see it for like 3/4 of the way there, and I never wanted to do it, and I never anticipated, like, when I agreed to go on this, I never anticipated that I would want to do it. But right now, I'm glad that I did it, and because I've done things like this before, I knew that at some point down the road, I'd be glad that I did it, and so turning back never really felt like a reasonable option.
There are two really good things in there just to point out. One is this idea of maybe I don't want to do it, but I want to have done it.
Yeah.
And that's something that's very real. And it's actually something that I even use, oddly enough. I use with like eating healthy. A lot of times I'm like ordering, I'm going to order. I tell Whit, like, oh, I'm just going to get this taco salad, tonight instead of the giant burrito I usually order. And she's like, oh, that's what you want to eat? And I'm like, well, that's what I want to have eaten tonight. Like, I'm imagining like how it's, it's being somewhere later, maybe trying to walk or something and feeling all bleh from the burrito. I'm like, it is 100% what I want to have eaten. There's one other piece that I love seeing in people's journey. And this one is probably, it applies to all the things that we coach on, but it comes up a ton when someone's trying to lose weight. Is they're like, they just are over it. They're like, I'm just gonna quit, and they have that thought. They're like, I'm losing, and then they're like, nope, I'm quitting. I ate too much last night, and now I'm just gonna quit. And I think an interesting observation from my perspective about that is that no, you're not. And knowing that is interesting, because if you're like, okay, so let's say you quit, then what happens? Well, then 2 weeks later, you're Googling, how do I lose weight? You're not really gonna quit. And so when you guys are going up there, there's a bit of a moment of that where there's a temptation of like, what if I just quit? And then an awareness of, okay, well, I'm not really gonna quit.
Right.
So now what do I want this experience to be like?
I think that like in the moment when I'm making the decision of do I keep going or do I stop, if I were to say I'm done, I'm going to go back down, I'll wait for you guys at camp, something like that, it would offer me zero relief, because I would feel guilty and I would be mad at myself.
Yeah.
And I would just be so bummed out, especially because like I earned something on this trip. I'd be like, no, I don't get it.
What'd you earn?
I'm getting a tattoo.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I think that stopping would offer me nothing except instant gratification, and that would last for like literally 5 seconds, and then I would be like, this is awful, why would I do that?
So if you're not going to quit, so once you realize like, okay, well, let's take that story out of this equation. I'm not going to quit, so now I know I'm not going to quit, so then what?
I just gotta go, I guess.
Like
once the decision's been made, like I was saying before, if I know I'm gonna keep going, I will be there eventually. And so literally never, I was trying to manage my mind the whole time. I never wanted to be doing that, ever.
But you did bust it up the scree slope.
Yeah.
How'd you do that?
Motored.
Well, I spent all last night looking at it, terrified. I'm like, that's gonna be miserable. I'm so excited for that to be over. And so I kind of have this thought of, if I make myself super scared and I set my expectations like super high for how hard it's gonna be, maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised.
Were you?
Going up it? No.
No. Oh my God. That strategy does not sound solid, because no one could expect as hard as that was.
That was brutal. But I definitely, one step at a time helped a lot. But the main thing driving me is that I want to have done it. I want it to be behind me. This thing that I've been staring at for 10 hours, like I want it to be done. I want it to be over. And so I just did it as fast as I could.
One last question about that, and I just know because we kind of talked about it already, but you said that one of the techniques that you used was, first you committed, which you made very clear, I'm going to make it. And then you said that you listened to your body, not your brain. Tell me what that means.
Well, more so on the way down, that was super scary. That was really scary. And I was worried that if I took a break for too long, that fear would just consume so much of my brain, and I'm like, I don't want to let that fear drive at all. And so on the way up, my legs are burning, my lungs are burning, and I'm like, well, if I just take a second to like breathe, I've committed to going. Once I feel like my legs could go to that next rock and I feel like my lungs could go to that next rock, then I'm gonna go. And then from that rock, I'll see how I feel and maybe go to the next one or two more. And my brain was not gonna help me at all. Going up, going down, walking to the summit, none of it, because I think automatically my brain, but like I don't want to do it. I never wanted to do it.
It was legitimately scary and hard.
Yeah, and so I think that if I acted on not wanting to do it and being super scared and it being too uncomfortable, I probably wouldn't have summited. So
yeah, it's awesome.
Well said.
I really want to emphasize when we came around the corner up that ski slope and you look up and you see how far there is to go.
Yeah.
My heart sinks, and that was my third time doing it. And my heart, it does not look like something that human beings can do. Let's like take that moment when you're terrified. You're like, I don't know that I want to do this even 5 more minutes. And then we come around the corner and we get our first view of how far we're gonna go. And you're like, this isn't gonna be 5 minutes. This is going to be 60 minutes. Best case scenario, 60 minutes.
Yeah.
And then what is that moment like?
I don't know. For me, I think I was just thinking one foot in front of the other.
Nice.
Just think one foot in front of the other. Once I got over the first thought of, oh my God, this looks so hard and it's going to take so long. And once my feet were moving, I was trying to tell myself that I was fit enough. It's not that I wasn't fit enough. Like I could do this. And so like I kept thinking about the things that I do in my day-to-day life that I could apply to that, trying to talk myself into thinking that I was qualified to do this. You know,
automatically I'm like so mad. I think at one point we thought that we saw the summit and we got like halfway there and you like super calmly were like, I think it's more like around this way, and I just started crying. I'm like I don't want to go. The being bummed out kind of instilled a little bit of fear in me, like, oh, I hope I'm not bummed out for more than like 5 minutes or else this is gonna suck. And so I'm like, I gotta figure out something else to get through my brain. And so it was more like, well, I'm glad that I'm not going up that anymore, or like I'm so much closer than I was, and I've done so much of the stuff that I was scared to do already. And a big one was that I just kept reminding myself that I would be there eventually.
like, yeah, that's good.
Whether it was right now or 3 hours from now, God forbid 3 hours from now, I was gonna be there eventually.
So we used Renee's pink socks, and we had them underneath a rock, and it was so that when we were coming down, because the thing is, you can kind of see down here, there are 20 different chutes down here. Only one of them is safe. Only one of them is safe-ish, and that's the one that we wanted to come down. And so, but we wanted to make sure we hit the right one, but it's very difficult to tell from the top. So we wanted something that stood out. We put Renee's pink socks over a rock, so that we're like, okay, now we know this is the top of the chute that we'll get down to the bottom with.
Yep.
But when we got to those pink socks, it didn't look like joy on your face.
No, it looked like ugly cry starting. Tears did not drip down. I thought about it, and you know it's funny. I think Paige, you had even said you're just like, well, just start, just let it, just cry. And I thought about it, and I'm like, I really could. I'm gonna hold it and wait. I'm just gonna wait it out. And I'm actually pretty proud of myself that I didn't cry.
Oh, nice.
Because I'm good at crying when I'm doing things that are making me feel very uncomfortable and uneasy. It's not that there's anything wrong with crying.
And so how do you do it? Like in that moment, you're looking over the edge. Over that edge would make anyone's heart drop. And so then the way that we did it, our plan was, I was like, I'll start walking down so that you can see that you don't die. And my heart flutters. I'm like, I put my first foot down, and I'm like, I hope it doesn't just slide out from under me.
Yeah.
But then once I know it doesn't, I'm like, okay, now I can walk down here. And then you guys were gonna start down, and you were right there. You didn't hesitate at all. You just jumped right in. How'd that happen?
Well, I didn't think about it, because if I sat and thought about it for a long time, all of those negative ideas, it would prevent me from starting, and I just didn't even want to go down that process. So I just followed along. And I think something that helped though was I was becoming more comfortable and confident with with the terrain that we were going down. So I was starting to learn about which rocks looked like they were just going to slide out and which ones looked like they were pretty anchored in. And so I just kept my focus on the anchored rocks. So that way, like any move that I made, I was just like, shoot for that rock or just shoot for this one. And it kind of helped me. It gave me something to think about.
Yeah, so thinking about, I'm better equipped about understanding this terrain.
Yeah.
I've been out here a while, so I know what's going on.
Right.
And then was it a bit of a just go?
Yeah, just go. Just go.
Yeah.
Don't sit and think about it. Just go.
I really like it. There's a story I heard one time that it really resonated with me, where the guy telling the story was like, I was in a room full of people that were trying to convince themselves they were capable. And he said, no, we're not looking for capable.
Right.
When you stand up on the top of a cliff and you're about to jump off into the water, you don't want to feel capable, you want to feel bold. And you want to feel like, look, I am going to do something that is on the edge of my ability. I'm going to push my edge right here, and I'm just going to go. And I like that, you were saying, I just didn't want to think about it. And I think that what it is a story about how wrong it could go.
Well,
and
right.
instead just go.
And using the experience that I had going up when the rocks and sand were just like coming out from underneath your feet, the times that I sat there and debated on which foot to do, and just instead of just like making the scramble to go, when I was standing there debating it, it felt awful. Like I was just making myself so much more nervous, versus the times that I just set my mindset just to, okay, you're going to go make it to that rock and haul ass, scramble. And so like, I kind of was thinking back to that too. So I had that to.
And I will say, as someone, I've taken a lot of people into a lot of situations where they are outside their comfort zone. Renee is really good at the 1, 2, 3 go.
Just go.
No kidding. No, like, I mean that as like a really serious compliment. Like the people that I've taken to do things, I never even had a doubt. I was like, what if you just decided you're going to scramble it on 1, 2, 3 go? And I knew you were going to go.
Wow.
And then she just shot up the thing. So that's a good strategy for you.
Yeah, I hauled ass.
So the last thing I want to just give you guys an opportunity to say is just, is there anything that you want to say, like anything that feels unsaid, or anything that like feels like it wants to come from you after this experience, after summiting, after conquering the fear, after conquering the work, after all the effort it took to get here? Is there just anything that wants to come out?
I think for me, it's you're stronger than you think you are, and like just believe in yourself,
I think it's important to remember that when things feel hard, and specific to this example, if your legs are burning or your legs are burning, that doesn't mean something went wrong. That discomfort is not like a result of something going poorly.
Yeah, and I think too, a big takeaway for me was, this is my summit, right? So it's the way that I did it. And so to try and compare myself to the two of you as I was going, that was getting me nowhere. And I think that's like a big thing in life, where you just don't compare yourself to other people. Just think about where you are right now in this moment and just embrace that.
Those are some solid points. My work is done here. That's all the coaching that our people need. That was awesome. Thank you. Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Ask Steadfast. Whit and I are super excited to use this avenue to sort of spread our message. And so it would mean a ton to us if you'd subscribe to this channel. Additionally, if you have any questions you'd like to see addressed in future episodes, whether serious or funny, we'd love to see those in the comments. So leave that in the comment below, and we'll see you in the next one.